The Orc race is one of the oldest intelligent species in all of the major factions of the 40K universe. They are found all over the galaxy, and there is no indication that they will ever disappear anytime soon. While most greenskins care little about their race's history, the truth is that the Orcs are one of the many psychically powerful warrior races created by an even older race known as the Old Ones. These Old Ones created the Orcs for a simple purpose: to destroy their archenemy, the Necron race. The full story of this great and ancient war is detailed in the Orcs' origin story, which I'll link up above, but it means that the conflict between the Orcs and the Necrons is one of the oldest feuds in the entire galaxy. The Greenskins have been killing tin heads for millions of years, and the constant war only stopped because the Necrons entered their great sleep. Now that the Necrons are reawakening, the Orcs, who by this point don't even remember how fun it was to kill Necrons, are eager to loot and pillage their old rivals. And with that said, I want to welcome you guys back to another 40 Facts about the 40K universe. I am your host, Gersh1, and today we're going to be talking about the Orcs versus the Necrons. If you guys are new to the channel, we post Warhammer 40K lore videos every single day, so if you have any suggestions or questions, just ask in the comment section below. And if you enjoy our content, consider subscribing, hitting the like button, and sharing with your friends. It really does help out the channel when you do so. And we also have a Patreon, link in the description if you guys want to support us. It's just $1 a month. But with all that said, let's get into 40 facts on the Orcs versus the Necrons. At first, it's easy to assume that the primitive Orcs wouldn't stand a chance against the Necron race. After all, the Orcs' preferred weapon of choice is usually a basic choppa, while the Necrons have gauze weaponry that could de-atomize a target from a distance. And while the Necron lords might view the Greenskins as simple vermin, only a foolish overlord would underestimate the savagery of an Orc walk. If a tomb world is not large enough or not fully awakened, the rampaging Orcs would easily overwhelm the Necron lair. And a tomb complex is an amazing prize for an Orc, with technology that can defy the laws of physics and enough resources to triple the size of a warboss's walker army. The Necron's home is a prized jewel for the Greenskins. Such was the motivating factor for the Orc warboss Skullcrack, who led a great walk into the desert tomb world of Fortress, on rumors that the planet was home to an ancient alien weaponry. After weeks of searching, all that the Orcs had discovered was that Fortress's seas were highly acidic and that its omnipresent sand got everywhere. Yet in truth, Fortress was neither a lifeless nor an uninhabited world, as Skullcrack discovered when the first wave of Necron warriors emerged from the planet's blood-red seas. Brackish water streamed from the living metal bodies. The soulless androids strode across the obsidian sand, each marching in perfect unison with each other, except for those few circuit misfires causing involuntary twitches and stumbles. As quickly as he could, the Orc warboss Skullcrack bellowed out his orders and the Orcs prepared for battle. The Necron phalanx came to an abrupt halt, they swung their gauze flare to bear, and the killing began. The first volley of energy cut deep into the disordered Orcs. Skullcrack, being somewhat quicker-witted than his followers, survived by hoisting up one of the lads off his feet and using him as cover. As a second torrent of energy crackled into the Greenskins, Skullcrack threw aside his shield and roared at his boys once more. This time the call of the Wog was taken up across the length and breadth of the shoreline. Choppas flailing, the Orcs hurled themselves into the storm of emerald energies. Such a charge would have been sufficient to freeze the blood of any mortal foe, but the Necrons were not so easily shaken as creatures of flesh. 3 more volleys did the mechanical warriors fire, and dozens of Greenskins fell to the black sand. Then the Orcs were upon them. Skullcrack hurled himself into the Necron ranks, swinging his massive war axe in a succession of brutal alley-crunching arcs that smashed undying heads from their shoulders, crushed rib cages, and shattered limbs. Within moments, the Orc warboss stood alone in a sea of twisted metal. He roared his dominance over the foe. Yet Skullcrack's claim to victory was premature. Even as the last Necron fell, the regeneration circuits of the first triggered, drawing upon hidden power reserves into the limbs and returning the warriors to full function. Even before Skullcrack's shout had finished echoing off the cliff, the Orc warboss found himself surrounded once again by the reanimated forms of those he had just hacked apart only moments before. Such was the scene all across the shore. Again and again, the Orcs' ferocity bore Necron warriors to the ground, but again and again the fallen dragged themselves back up into the fight. Decapitated heads were reclaimed by grasping hands, and severed arms scrambled across the sand in search for sundered necrodermis bodies. As the momentum of the Orc charge faded, the Necrons began to hold their own in the bitter battle. Still acting in unison, the Necron warriors hacked at the Orcs with heavy-bladed bayonets, and unlike their opponents, the Greenskins that were struck down did not rise again. Only near Skullcrack was the fight still in the Orcs' favor, for the war boss had taken to smashing his opponent into as many and as small pieces as possible to delay the inevitable reassembly. So lost was he in the joy of battle that Skullcrack didn't notice the swiftly rising tide until the waters were lapping at his feet. The dynamic of the battle had changed as the sea rose up to the beach to swallow the sands. For the first time since the fight had begun, downed Necrons were failing to regenerate, as vital components were swept out into the seething waters of the bay. Yet the rising tide also sucked at the Orcs' feet, making their footing treacherous. Worse still, those Necrons that managed to self-repair did so hidden beneath the waves, and many an Orc were dragged beneath the surface by grasping mechanical hands. Bellowing at his lads to follow, the war boss ran back to the beach as swiftly as the drag of water about his leg would allow him. There, under the shadow of the cliff face, the Orcs prepared to make their stand. The waters below were quieter now. Only a handful of Necrons were visible above the water, and then suddenly they were sucked beneath the surface. The greenskins let out a cheer, but the noise swiftly died away, as out in the bay the waters parted once more and a slab-sided monolith heaved its way to the surface. Gunfire scattering off its armored flank, the war machine glided slowly towards Skullcrack and his remaining boys. There was an ear-splitting whine. The crystal atop the monolith glowed a piercing white, and then all that was left of the Orcs was a smoldering pile of ash. Far beneath the surface of the bay in a vaulted stone chamber, two enthroned Necron nobles watched the holographic reaction of Skullcrack's demise. Rising, one banished the hologram with a dissatisfied wave of his metallic hand.
Combat efficiency remains at 70% of acceptable parameters. Further data is necessary to complete the required optimization.
Indeed, replied the other, also rising.
Recommend activation of Mind Shackle Scarabs XD11101. Humans will provide a suitable comparator.
The first Necron nodded to indicate his agreement and issued the necessary command.
It is done. If the subject performs as expected, we have 3 solar months to prepare.
Shortly thereafter, 3 sectors away, Tech Priest Drudak began preparation to investigate a report cache of xenotechnology. It was located in an out-of-the-way desert world known as Fortress. Now we can gather from this information that the Necrons were setting up the Orcs. They knew that the Orcs were coming and they wanted to test out new weapons on the Greenskins. However, the same cannot be said for another notable encounter between the Necrons and the Orcs. When attempting to loot the ancient treasures of the Necron tomb world, Death Skull warlord Zork triggered a planetary reanimation protocol. Canoptic constructs by the thousands surrounded the Greenskin invaders, but far from being intimidated, the Death Skulls were delighted. They scavenged and stole at will. The Orcs cobbled together hordes of cyborgs, Morkanauts, and ever more improbable superweapons. While using a hijacked Necron Dolmen Gate, they ferried in waves upon waves of reinforcements. By the time the Tomb World's overlord Thamtek the Magnificent awakened to take command of his legions, he did so at the sight of a mob of leering mech boys standing over his sarcophagus. The Orcs completely destroyed the Tomb World. And those were 40 facts on the Necrons versus the Orcs. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. It's just a quick little lore video as I work on my Tau army. Updates to that hopefully soon. I will keep you guys posted. If you guys have suggestions for any other topics, please let me know what they are in the comment section below. I read those comments every single day. I don't necessarily respond, but I do read them. So if you have suggestions or questions, just ask away. Thank you guys so much for listening, and I'll talk to you tomorrow. This is Gersh1 with One Mind Syndicate signing out.
Oh, I used to put my freedom first.